So right now I'm at the top of my notes from yesterday, and what I actually want to do is add one thing at the bottom of these notes to finish them off, and then we are going to move into our new page. So sorry, I'm just gonna move my thing a little bit. So if I'm going down after my practice problems, what I want to talk about is, excuse this thud while I put my iPad down. What I want to talk about is what can we do with expressions? Like, why are we even learning about them? Okay, so let's write that question on the side. What can we do with expressions? Okay, what can we do with expressions? I'm going to use a blue highlighter today to separate my notes from last time. Okay, what can we do with expressions? So the first thing we can do, and we already did it in the practice above, is we can translate word problems into math problems. Okay, so we can translate word problems into math problems. And that way, whenever we have a word problem, we know what to do with it. Okay, and we already did that. That's what we did in our practice up here. Okay, the second thing we can do is we can evaluate the expressions. And I'll show you what that means because that's what our next page of notes is going to be. We can evaluate expressions, or finally, we can simplify expressions. And we'll do that in a later class. So we can evaluate expressions and we can simplify expressions. Okay, so those are the three things that we can do. And actually, I'm going to put a circle so I can really emphasize, but if you already put the little colons, that's okay. All right, so what I want us to do right now is we're going to go ahead and move on to our new page of notes. So if you notice, I'm done with these notes. I'm moving into a new page. All right, so I'm on the next page and I'm going to go ahead and set up my notes. So I'm drawing my line across, and then I'm also going to zoom out so you can see the line I'm going to draw, all the way down. And then I'm going to go ahead and put my title at the top, and I'm making a little different colors because I love colors. And I'm going to go ahead and write evaluating expressions as my title. Okay? Evaluating expressions is going to be your title. Okay? And then I'm going to do my little highlighting in the corners. And I'm using blue today. And then make sure you also include the date at the top right corner. All right. If you haven't already done so, make sure you include today's objective. So the objective should say, I can evaluate expressions. I can evaluate expressions when given a defined variable. I can evaluate expressions when given a defined variable. Okay? So now we need to also talk about what does it mean to evaluate. Okay, so what does evaluate mean? I'm going to write that down as my topic. What does evaluate mean? So evaluate is basically, I'm trying to find out what is the total value. Okay, so when I'm evaluating, I'm trying to find out what is the total value of an expression So what is the total value of an expression given the value of the variables? Given the value of the variables. Okay? So if I have a whole expression and I want to find out what the entire expression is worth, that's what I'm trying to figure out. So let's do an example together. And I want you guys to actually this time, we're going to break up our example section a little differently. So draw this line down the kind of the middle of the example section so we can separate what we want to write. Okay? So the example that we are going to work with is 3x plus 2y. All right? We have to evaluate that given x equals 4 and y equals 1. So what is the value of that whole expression if we know that x is 4 and y is 1? Okay? So that's what we're trying to figure out. So the value of that whole expression. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm putting my steps here, is plug in the value. So plug in the value of the variables. We're going to plug in the value of the variables. So I'm going to rewrite this as 3, but instead of x, I'm putting in 4, because x is 4, plus 2, and I'm putting in 1, instead of y, because y is 1. Okay? So that's how I'm plugging in for my first step. The second step is to just simplify. So now that I have everything plugged in, I just need to simplify and solve this, basically. So I'm going to first do 3 times 4, which is 12, and then 2 times 1 is 2, and I'm adding those together. And if I add 12 plus 2, I should get 14. Circle your answer, and that is what you should get when you evaluate 3x plus 2y given those specific values of the variables. Okay? Let's do one more example to have in our notes. So go ahead and create a second example section at the bottom. We don't need the steps this time because we already have them up top. Okay, so let's do 4 plus 2m minus x. 4 plus 2m minus x given m equals 8 and x equals 3. Okay? So we know that the first step was to plug in the variables. So I'm going to rewrite my equation, or excuse me, my expression, and I'm going to replace the m with 8, and I'm replacing the x with 3. And I like to put them in parentheses at first, and you'll see why later in the year. Okay? Now I'm going to evaluate this. So 2 and 8 is actually multiplication, so that's going to be 16. I'm going to bring everything else down. And then I'm going to add 4 plus 16, which is 20. Bring down the 3. And then I'm going to subtract 20 minus 3, which should give me 17. And make sure that you circle your answer.